Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to be working on this split tumbler with this beautiful dragonfly butterfly vinyl from NICOLEM Originals. I'm working on a 20-ounce straight tumbler from Tumbler Supply Store, and since we're doing a split tumbler, I just wanted to take my painter's tape and split my cup in half the best that I possibly could, because I don't ever measure. Well, not very often do I measure, so I just took my painter's tape, kind of measured it where it looked like it was half, and then put it down both sides of the tumbler. And I just lined it up to look like it was as straight as possible. And then on the side that I'm not working on, I put another little piece of tape just so I would remember what side I was not supposed to be working on, because I've done that before and confused myself. So once I had that marked off, I measured on the vinyl about how tall I needed it and about how wide I needed it, because this vinyl is beautiful. I didn't want to waste a bunch of it, so I just wanted to pretty much cut out the shape that I would need for that half of the tumbler. So I just marked that off with my little Sharpie, and then I took the vinyl to my paper cutter and trimmed off about the size of that square. Then I turned it around and I cut off all of the white edging so that I could get a very crisp line to line up to the painter's tape. So what I'm going to do is take that edge and line it up right against that edge of the painter's tape. And then on the other side, when it overlaps, I will have a line where to trim the vinyl with the line of that painter's tape. Once I had that all laid down, I smoothed it out the best that I could, and then on the bottom, I really pulled on it to overlap it over the bottom edge, and then I cut slits to help with a smooth wrap so it wasn't all bunched up on the very bottom. Sometimes I trim it at the very bottom, but this one I wanted it to overlap and go into the bottom. After I had that bottom edge folded over, I took my squeegee and tried to run it along the line of the blue painter's tape for the edge that I need to trim. This just kind of helps give it a little mark so it's easier to see. I did it on both sides because I did actually end up overlapping it just a tiny bit on the first side. So I just ran that down, and then I took my X-Acto knife, a very sharp new blade, and just pulled it straight down on that little indented line, and it helped just guide me so I could cut it straight, because I can't cut straight to save my life. And trimmed up both sides of that, and then trimmed off the top, and we had a perfect side of the vinyl wrap. I did trim a little bit off the bottom as well, just to give it, I was trying to go right in that circle for a smooth cut on the very bottom as well. Now we're going to immediately start working on the other side of this design. So I'm going to tape off the vinyl so that we don't get any paint on it. I just used my painter's tape, put a line down on each side, and then I'm going to go in with this light creamy chalk paint and base paint the entire exposed side. At this point, I didn't have like an exact plan. I just had a general idea of what I was going to do on this side. So I wasn't sure if I was going to use this dark paint. I even tried mixing a little alcohol ink with some paint too, just to see which direction I was going to go. But we started with this base, and then I dried it with my heat gun so that I could move on immediately to the next step. So at this point, I'm just kind of going with the flow. So once that was dry, I took this metallic paint and I just took a dry, clean paintbrush, dipped it in, and just kind of feathered it on in random spots. I didn't want a full coverage, but I wanted enough to just give it some contrast. So I dried that as well with my heat gun so that I could move on to the next step. So then for the next step, I went in with the darker of the two chalk paints that I showed a little while ago and did the exact same thing. And I think I'm just using the same paintbrush at this point for that, and just kind of feathered it in random spots as well. Then I kind of just went back in with some more of the metallic paint just to kind of help build up a good layered look for it. I just continued to go back and forth between the two paints without covering all of the original cream, but giving it a good balance of the two darker colors on there. Once I was happy with that coverage, I again went in with my heat gun and dried all of that so that I could move on again to the next step. Once that was dry, I wanted to go in with a little bit different, not texture, but element of adding more distress lines, and this time we're going to add in some black to really tie in the background of the vinyl. So I just took a paper towel and kind of scrunched it up to where it had a point, and then I dipped that point in some black paint and did the same concept. I just swiped lines across this painted area just to give it some more depth with another color, and using the paper towel just gives it a different look than using a paintbrush. I continued to do that, and then I also used the paper towel to go in with just a little bit of the original cream color just to bring that bottom element back up to the top and tie it all in together. And I kind of pounced it on there to also give it a different look than just the swipey lines. After that was done, I set it aside and let it dry completely on its own, and then I am taking the same concept with the paper towel and adding in some foil adhesive glue because we're going to add some foil now, and I just wanted a hint of foil accent, so I'm just going in just a few little random spots. So I let that foil glue dry, and then we're adding this brown, like coppery color foil. All of the foils are from Artistic Painting Studio. And then I had this light gold, which was so pretty and added perfect like gold touches to it without being overwhelming. And then I went in with this bright mossy green, and it was just perfect to tie in just a few of the colors from the vinyl over here on this distressed grungy side. After this, we have one more element to add to the side. I know it's kind of busy and a lot, but it really all came together in the end. So after I was all done with the foil, I took my Crystalac glitter glue and I just added little tiny stripes, and then I patted it down with my paper towel, and then I took this gold digger from Diamonds and Dust and I just applied it right on there and then just kind of rubbed it in with the paper towel. It kind of almost in the same concept as a tack it method, but it just kind of helped smooth it down so it's not too chunky. But it just was the perfect color to match to bring in the gold elements from that side of the vinyl. So once that was done and I set it aside to let the glitter glue dry, I then applied 2 coats of epoxy to make sure it was nice and smooth, and I love it. I love the grungy side with the delicate butterflies and dragonflies on the vinyl side. And then I debated on if I wanted to add a decal to it. It is pretty busy on the grungy side, but I still felt like it needed something. I always struggle with putting a decal or something on it, and I really felt like this one needed it. So I came across this SVG from Mallory Pagnotta from Made by Manny and Mal, and it was perfect. I just felt like it was exactly what it needed to say. So I cut that out with a black offset, and even though it's going on the vinyl side, I still wanted that little bit of an offset just to kind of help it stand out a little bit. And this gold vinyl, it's shiny gold, and I don't know where I got it. It's old and it doesn't cut very well, so I wanted to make sure I really lined it up well. So I just applied the gold part to the offset individually, and then I applied it as a whole to the vinyl side. And there's a dragonfly on the bottom, and I did not want to cover that up, so I raised it so it was a little bit higher, and then I pulled off that transfer tape, and then I also, out of the gold, cut these cute little dragonflies, and I applied them on there as well. I know the gold, it blends in just a little bit, but I also felt like I didn't want it to really stand out by itself. I wanted it all to kind of look like a cohesive element. I don't know how to explain it, but I didn't want it to be a completely contrasting color. I really wanted it to blend in just as it was. So once I had those dragonflies applied, then we're going to go in and add some striping on the edge. So I also cut from black and gold some stripe lines, and I laid down the gold first, and I did kind of a thicker line. I don't know what the sizing was on it. It's hard for me to give an exact size on my stripe lines because I always cut a few different sizes and then play with it on that tumbler to see which size I like best in that moment on that design. So I picked a little bit thicker for the gold, and then I went in on top of that and laid down a thinner black stripe down the center. I did forget to mention that before I applied the epoxy over the foils and the glitter, I did coat it with polyacrylic to help seal in all of that adhesive and give a smooth finish to the epoxy. And so once I was done with the striping, I went in with polyacrylic again because it's a chrome vinyl, and then gave it its 2 final coats of epoxy, and it was all complete. I love the way this came out. I love the grungy, distressed look, and I hope that I have inspired you in some way, and I hope that you loved this video. If you did, I would love for you to subscribe and give me a like, and don't forget to hit the bell to know when I upload any future videos. I have left all of the information where to find me down in the description box, and also all of the details and products I've used will be linked down in the description box as well. I thank you again for being here, and I will see you next week.